Freedom's the goal here.
Yes. Well, basically, the only antidote that I think is there for anger is forgiveness. I mean, you really have to make a conscious choice of forgiving. But when we forgive, often people say, well, they hurt me, but I've forgiven them. And when they flip it out that fast, I think, have you? Yeah. Now, in practical definition, forgiveness for me is releasing the anger, the energy that's stored in me. See, stored anger is so destructive. I mean, it'll affect our bodies, it'll affect our immune systems, it creates low self-esteem and depression, ultimately suicide. That's anger turned inward. It destroys relationships in terms of anger outward, whether it's active or passive, doesn't really matter. I mean, this is all in the book, the way I've described it. But see, if we don't get rid of the anger, it doesn't go away because it's energy. And energy can store in a battery or in uranium or whatever for generations, for years. And anger stores for years. So when you get hurt at 3 years of age in a significant way, and it doesn't have to be hurt in terms of somebody abusing you, it can be a parent died and you now felt abandoned. See, that hurt doesn't just go away because time does not heal. That's a myth. So what we do is we have to go back and work through. And it means consciously saying, you know what, I'm going to release the anger. I'm going to get in touch with the anger again first. Because lots of times people have dismissed it. And they'll say, I'm not angry. How many times have we said that? You get into a conflict with your spouse.
But it's hard to, but also though, it's hard to admit that. Like for somebody to sit there watching even the show today and going, all right, I admit I have anger issues. And then to go all the way back to maybe something when you were 5 that your dad did, that's hard work.
Absolutely, Melinda, it is hard work, and which is why most people avoid it.
Because they think it's better to avoid than to deal with the issue.
Well, or else they don't know how to. They avoid because they don't want to, or it's too frightening. Sometimes it's just so frightening to go back there and touch that pain again. I mean, I've had people, when I'm working this stuff through, my wife Sherry and I are working this stuff through, that they end up on the floor in a fetal position just weeping and weeping.
And afraid of confrontation too is probably a part of it as well.
But you see, again, we don't deal with anger by confronting. We deal with a situation to improve a relationship by confronting. That's anger used in a constructive way. But here's what often happens. You're angry at somebody, you think, okay, now I'm not going to let you get away with this. So you go tell them with the storehouse of anger, and it just comes out like this, and you go, oh, I'm not going to do that again. I messed that one up. See, I've learned if I want to confront my wife over an issue or she wants to confront me over an issue, we work our anger through first. We forgive first. I go for a run. I say, God, I'm so angry at Sherry for what she did, or she goes for whatever she does, her exercise thing downstairs. We work out the anger. Then we come and say, now look, we need to talk about this.
You resist the urge to use anger as a weapon.
Yes. Weapon or control, either one, yes, exactly.
And I love that you separate two things, because the response of the person needing to deal with anger and forgiveness can be impacted by just seeing that forgiveness is a one-way street.
Right.
Reconciliation is a two-way street. And they are separate challenges. Because you may not need to do the reconciliation.
No, and sometimes you can't. It's out of your hands. And I've found that people would say sometimes, I can't forgive because if I forgive, it means I'll have to be reconciled to my abuser. And if there's serious abuse back there, I say, no. Forgiveness releases you. Stops making you a victim for the rest of your life. You don't have to carry that pain that happened back here in time up here into the present, into the future. See, but if they have to be reconciled, that's a place of stopping, because you can't control the other person. But if God in His grace can work that through, then reconciliation can happen. That's another piece of work. So that's why forgiveness is a one-way street. It's just you.
Well, this is what I like about your book, because you actually give 5 daily steps on how to deal with anger on a daily basis, and then you actually give a strategy for that. Do you remember the 5 daily steps? I think that was really key through the chapters of how to go through that.
Well, that's the section where I distinguish between anger and its definition and what it is and working it through, and anger management. See, lots of people say, oh, you're talking about anger management. I say, well, to a degree. I'm not primarily giving seminars on anger management, because that often means we repress a lot of anger. If I'm managing it, I'm pushing it down. Repression, by the way, is an unconscious process. Suppression is the conscious process.
So you're not free, too, if you're managing this stuff all the time.
No, and you're often managing out of this big black pot, I call it in the book, this enormous pot of buried anger, stored or repressed anger within you. And then it's sort of like, here's a small incident, and it goes boom.
Yeah.
And you go, what happened there? All right, because there's a whole bunch of anger back here.
All that fuel behind
Yeah,
it.
right.
So then what's the steps?
Back
You
your
have the
step.
five daily steps.
See if I can remember them. First one is you've got to recognize that we use lots of other words to avoid using the word anger. It's sort of like talking about sex or talking about death. We use other words, and so we don't talk about anger. Think about he flipped out, or
Yeah.
he's a little frustrated. All right, now frustration in my mind is low-grade anger. It's just low-grade anger.
So I can say, wow, he has low-grade anger
You could say that.
instead of frustration.
Well,
Okay.
what I often say to people is until you recognize you're angry, see, it's like the alcoholic. How do they deal with alcoholism until they say, you know what, I have an alcoholic problem.
You have to
So
acknowledge
you
it.
have to acknowledge it, first step, and then the next thing you have to do, once you've acknowledged, you have to realize, where did this come from? What's it covering? What was the danger zone out there for me that created this? And so it allows you to go back and look at what is back there in terms of the issues, because anger went off. The anger button, as I call it, went off for a reason. All right. So what's going on? I want to explore what's going on back there.
You need God's help at least.
I believe you do. I mean, one of my favorite questions all the time is, okay, Holy Spirit, what's going on? I mean, as a Christian.
Because our hearts are deceitful. They
Right.
lie to us.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
They're not going to tell us everything.
Right. And in fact, when you're working anger stuff out on the larger issue, you have to have somebody work it out with you. Even the exercise I've developed in a book called the Forgiveness Exercise, you need somebody working it out with you.
So then number 3,
Remind
Daily
me.
step?
Daily step.
I'm looking at you and I'm going, here's my book. And 3, 4, 5, you can kind of skip around. I'm like looking through, I made the notes. You have get control of your anger is step
okay.
3.
Right. Because again, you want to use your anger in a way that's productive. It's like dynamite. It can be used to destroy. It can be used as a terrorist weapon, or it can be used as a constructive process for building a bridge or something like that, And so you need to learn how to control it. And if you don't control the anger, it controls you. And so that's why I say buried anger has to be dealt with, because it'll control you even though you're not aware of it. So I use it in a controlled way because it's energy. It gives me courage. I remember one time confronting my boss years ago when he charged me with something that wasn't right, and I was a neophyte beginning counselor in the community college, and I went out to him and I said to him, "This is not right. You should not treat me this way." And I don't know where I got the courage from that, except God gave it to me. But I used my anger in the right way. And he never forgot that. He respected me after that. He never treated me the way he treated some of the other employees because of my anger used in a righteous way. So get it under control.